So would you like to tell people a bit about yourself? As in, the reason why I ask this, and I mentioned it just before the call, is that often when companies do promotion and they do webinars and different things, it's not that difficult to actually get across factual information which tells a story. But the real difference which makes or breaks a sale or a long-term relationship is exactly the relationship side to it, getting to know people, the backstory, if they have fire and ball paint, lots of different things like that. That actually I'm always interested to talk to people that I know or know through the network. And we've got a lot of kind of mutual friends, because actually the form of video and podcast and that kind of thing, when people get a feel for your mannerisms, your tone of voice, what you're like, and also some of your kind of backstory, where you grew up, that kind of thing, it adds so much flavor to you and your brand and everything you do. So if you're happy to kind of share, where did you grow up?
Sure. So I was born in Sunderland, Steve, and I am, yes, a Sunderland fan. So I apologise for offending any Geordies amongst us. I was schooled in Sunderland, and I actually went to a sixth form in Washington called St. Robert's. And I guess that's really when I first got the taste and the desire to move into advisory / accountancy. I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about that, Steve, as we go, if you would like.
Yeah, of course. So did you go to uni? Did you go straight into a job?
Great question, Steve. And this is where my background is actually quite different to the typical chartered accountant. So when I was at sixth form, I did 5 A levels, did incredibly well. And the intention always was, largely as a consequence of my parents encouraging me toward university, the intention was always to go to Durham University to study law. And the intention after my law degree was either to actually practice as a lawyer or to go into accountancy, because fundamentally I knew I wanted to be involved in business at the cutting edge. I was incredibly fortunate when at sixth form to actually, Steve, have the opportunity to go to PwC, which is, of course, the largest accountancy firm in the world, for a 2-week works experience. And I thoroughly enjoyed working for PwC for that 2-week period. I got a real insight into what the world of accounting and advisory entailed. Of course, I had the opportunity to meet and influence certain individuals within PwC, to the extent that once I'd completed my A-levels, the actual office managing partner of PwC Newcastle asked whether I would like to actually go into PwC and do a summer intern between my A-levels and my law degree, which
Okay,
I was
wow.
absolutely delighted to take advantage of. Needless to say, that went very well. And at that point, I actually concluded that maybe law and 4 years studying law at Durham University wasn't for me. So I managed to secure with PwC a training contract, which involved me for 2 years studying the AAT qualification, which then enabled me to move straight into the ACA qualification, which effectively meant, Steve, I was able to qualify as a chartered accountant with PwC in 4 years.
Nice.
Rather than having to go to university and then to enter into what would have been a 3-year training contract anyway.
And
So,
you also got to escape the 30 grand's worth of debt as well.
well, that's right. I mean, what I ended up achieving was I was a chartered accountant. I was 19 years of age. I didn't have any student burden, if we call it that, and of course, I was incredibly well placed as a newly qualified chartered accountant with PwC, and I guess at that point, that's when I had the ability to decide what came next.
No, I think it's very cool, but likewise, it's great to know the story, because you will interact with a hell of a lot of business owners. And what always amazes me, but in a good way, is how diverse everyone's background is.
That's
But
right.
actually, you have arguably when you work on a lot of deals, it's always great to have different people on the team from different backgrounds. And actually, often a lot of people regret going to uni, or they don't really make the most of it. And the whole point is you often go to get a job. The fact that you almost had that lined up from the start, guaranteed, is a dream. Because I know a lot of people, my wife's a solicitor, she works for Muckle. But a lot of the people who went to university in her class didn't get a training contract, they didn't get a job. And you almost, you beat the system in a good, positive way. So, you know, it's a really good kind of sign. And then how did you go from PwC to where you are now?
Sure. And just to acknowledge what you said, Steve, it's interesting. I've never thought about my route straight into the profession as beating the system, but it's an interesting way to approach it, because, you know, what I knew from a very young age was that I wanted to qualify either as a lawyer or accountant, and I wanted to work with privately owned businesses and business owners, advising them on all aspects of growth, change, and transformation by helping great businesses become greater.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the best way, the most efficient way of achieving that would be by becoming an accountant or a lawyer. And one thing, Steve, that will come across during this podcast is that, you know, I'm not the type of individual who will take 12 months doing something that could be done in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the only commodity that you can't create more of is time. And I value my and other people's time incredibly preciously. So I've always been, you know, viciously ambitious, but only because I appreciate time is something you can't take for granted.